So be better was the mantra that we had worked at this company for 7 years, me and my business partners, and we had seen like we learned everything we knew in this company, and it was a lot of really good knowledge. But there were some things that we wanted to do better. We wanted to pay our technicians quicker and on time, more of an on time way. We wanted to be transparent with our customers, and so we also wanted to be better to our community.
When I was younger, it was really because profit, 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 right? It's like you've got to get a company going, you've got to be profitable, you got to be there's this balance and pressure because you want to take care of the people that you have and you got to drive that profit. But if you put the mindset that you're going to take care of the people you have first, the profit's going to come. It's
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.
Welcome back to Unfinished Business. Listen, for all of you out there, how many challenges, as a person, personally or professionally, do we come across in a lifetime? Well, listen, our guest today is an innovator, and he had a major challenge in his life, and he turned that into a success. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with, and we have the pleasure of listening to, Michael Kurland's story. He's the founder and CEO of Branded Group, and he's also the author of a book that we're going to talk about a lot today called Broken to Better. This guy is a fantastic leader and CEO, but his story really goes a lot deeper than this. So Michael's story is one of transformation. He had the perfect life. He had the perfect wife. Everything was working out. And he had this be better mantra of really that was grabbing him and guiding him. So we're going to hear about this story today. We're going to hear his reflection on insights of leadership to resilience to growth. And it's going to be a fun conversation today. So everybody sit back, relax, enjoy this one. Michael, I want to welcome you to the show and appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate you having me. And wow, that was quite the introduction. I need to get my wife to also introduce me that way at like family gatherings. So
Listen, man, I can really tell, obviously, with us connecting and doing my research, I was really looking forward to get you on this show because I want to dive into this story. But let's give our listeners a little bit of background here. Listen, you sold everything. You drove across country from New York to California, which is an extremely bold move. What were the emotions going on at that time in your life? If you can bring everybody back at that point and making that transition, because there's a lot of people out there who are in this point where they just feel like they need more and they need to make a jump. I'm not saying the biggest jump is you made, but what I'm saying is giving our listeners a little bit of insight to what was going on at that time and when you decided to make this change in your life.
yeah, so almost 11 years ago to the day, I started driving cross country and ended up in Orange County, Newport Beach, California, Orange County, right? And I was living in Lake Grove, New York, which is on Long Island. On Long Island, it's in Suffolk County. I don't know what you know about Long Island, but it's out east, like in between the Hamptons and New York City, right? So it's just it's very it's not rural, but it's not urban. It's somewhere in it's suburban, right? So it was a life like I don't know if I would say it was the perfect life, right? But I was the VP of sales for a company that was very similar to what Branded Group did, and I was married. And in 2012, I found out my wife was having an affair, and in 2012, I got fired from my job, and it was because the company had sold to private equity, and private equity came in and said we're not going to change anything, and then they changed everything, and just decided I wasn't the guy for their new vision sales role, whatever. Yeah, so they didn't want to pay me anymore. They let me go. My wife, I didn't want to pay her anymore. I let her go, and I, I I decided I can do this. I can do this better, and I can do it from California. So I packed my car. We had like a little crew of guys that were all going out west for certain different aspects. I had like three guys going to PT school. They were going to get their master's degree, and they all had like their internships in Arizona for like different places in Arizona. And I had a buddy who just was ready to go on a road trip at that point of his life. And we just road tripped, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, and led me to here. So that's kind of the background in a nutshell. If you have
Wow.
I'll stop there
Can
for
I back
questions.
up a little bit here?
Yeah, yeah.
Because listen, we go into the personal thing and we go into the professional thing here, and for those people out there, and fortunately, I had not had that, but I know people who've had a spouse or significant other cheat on them. You lose your job. I mean, it could be losing a job. It could be both. It could be one. Unfortunately, you went through both, or fortunately, we're going to find out here in a minute. But if you can bring us back for listeners out there who may have gone through or going through this, what kind of advice could you give them in retrospect to a situation like that?
So you can look at your situation, however you want to like paraphrase it and make it. You could be a victim or a victor, or glass half full, glass half empty, right? And
Yes.
and I spent, when I first found out my wife was having an affair, I definitely spent a few weeks, months, woe is me. I can't believe this is happening. Like, what? I don't deserve this. What did I do to deserve this? And the answer was pretty simple. Like, we just weren't meant for each other. And she fired the loudest shot that, like, ended everything. And so
Yeah.
after taking my time to digest it, and I had one of my, it was actually my best friend. He still is to this day. And he went
Hmm.
on that road trip with me. He was one of the PT guys that ended up in PT school in Arizona. And
Yeah.
he called me when I first found out, and he said, look, you can handle this however you want to handle this, but I can tell you how not to handle this. He said, don't go Jerry Springer. Don't make a spectacle. Don't like throw all her stuff on the front lawn. Don't curse
Yeah.
her out. Don't feed into this. Like, just go about your business and methodically, like, just keep moving forward. Right. And that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. And then, I subjectively started looking at it, and I'm like, I really wasn't in love with her. I wasn't
Yeah.
happy with where our life was going. And she fired the loudest shot, but like, it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And it was, it allowed me, she would have never moved to California, and I would have been stuck in New York in this like loveless
Yeah.
marriage. We probably would have had a child, and then who knows how much
Who
worse it
knows
would
at
have
that
gotten.
point?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for people out there that are going through this, like, just remember who you are and like where you came from. And it's not going to be this bad every day. The dark days may be there for a little while, but just remember, like, be a not a victim, be a victor.
I
And
love that.
push through, because you can take that and use it as fuel. And I did. I mean, I wanted to be better. I wanted a better life. I didn't want to. I'd come home from work, sit on the couch, we'd watch TV, and I'd drink a six-pack of Bud Light, and it was,
That was it.
I was just like
Yeah.
not achieving the best version of myself that I could be. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And your partner's a big part of that, man. I mean, we really believe in that for sure. So everything does happen for a reason. So now you've packed up, you're heading across the country, and at this point, it sounds like you're almost feeling, even though you went through a really tough situation, sure as mixed emotions, but it was almost invigorating, it sounds like, as well.
yeah, it was a relief, because for a long time I don't like the cold. I lived in Connecticut, New York, Toronto for most of
Uh,
my adult life. None of those places are warm for much of the year. And
yeah,
yeah, the warmest place I ever lived was Lynchburg, Virginia. Also, not really a warm place.
not very warm.
And I
Yes.
had a ton of clients out in the Los Angeles area, because what we do is mainly retail maintenance. And so most of the retailers that we worked with had corporate offices somewhere in LA County. And so I would
Yeah.
fly out 2 or 3 times a year. I'd be taking my clients out, doing things in California that you can't do in the winter in New York. I
Yes.
somehow find a reason to be here in, December, January, February, right? And then and I just loved it out here. And so I found a reason to like make it out here. And like I was saying earlier, the most of the corporate offices for retailers in the country are in New York City, and most
Yeah.
of the repair and maintenance companies are around New York City, right? Because it's Eastern time zone, whatever, whatever,
Right.
whatever. The second most corporate offices are in California, and there's like one other repair and maintenance company because no one wants to deal with the time zone issues. But I was willing to do it, and that's anyway. Long story short, that's
Yeah, it's
why
great.
I got myself out here. So.
Yeah. So now you get to California. How do you turn this idea? All right. I mean, you have experience, which is great. You leverage your strengths, right? You have experience in the space. How do you really turn that into a reality? What were some of the biggest early challenges? What are some of the things that went really well? What was your plan there?
So be better was the mantra that we had worked at this company for 7 years, me and my business
Okay.
partners, and we had seen like we learned everything we knew in this company, and it was a lot of really good knowledge. But there were some things that we wanted to do better. We wanted to pay our technicians quicker and on time, more of an on time way. We
Yeah.
wanted to be transparent with our customers, and so we also wanted to be better to our community. We wanted to like make charity, specifically me. I wanted to make charity a portion of what we were doing and taking care of our community and the people in our community. And
Great.
so
Great.
so we really like drilled down into those ideals, and that's where like the be better concept came from. And so we put it into action, and we we paid our vendors faster, which in the beginning was hard. And and we started an initiative with Habitat for Humanity in Orange County, helped build some houses around Orange County, and we treated our employees better, and we were very transparent with our clients, and it worked. People really liked it because it was a breath of fresh air from 11 years ago, what was going on in the industry for what we did. And so I think people really appreciate it. And one of the things I've always been told is I'm a very I come across as a very honest and genuine person. I've never said that about myself, but I've been told that,
Yes.
and so I always grasp onto that and appreciate that and try and lean into that. Like, hey, that's who I want to be. So I'm glad it's coming across, and I did that when I opened the company, the doors of the company, and I think people really appreciated that because they knew what I said was what I was going to do, and I stood by my word and took care of the people that I wanted to take care of. So
Yeah, I think it's important in this world, especially, when I was younger, it was really because profit, 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 right? It's like you've got to get a company going. You've got to be profitable. You got to there's this balance and pressure because you want to take care of the people that you have and you got to drive that profit. But if you put the mindset that you're going to take care of the people you have first, the profit's going to come. It's really, and looking back on it, there were in my earlier days, I really did press on the profit a little bit more than I did the people. When I made that transition of, listen, I'm going to take care of the people first and the profits are going to come. That's why I love getting in with organizations that are really trying to build up because they're like, well, we got to move the numbers up. Well, no, what you got to really start doing is empowering your people. If you empower your people and you give them what they need, those numbers will start going up. They think it's, the activity and you got to do this. No, but if you better tools, better direction, you definitely will see those things come up. So you emphasize this in aligning purpose with profit, which I really liked. I read this and I thought it was interesting. How does that principle like shape the way, obviously, that you do business and really the way you operate as a professional? And I'm sure it carries over to your personal life as well.
yeah, so to your point, to get a little deeper into that, taking care of our
Yeah.
employees in our industry, the turnover rate is over 50% for
Wow.
the regular employee. It's not quite on the fast food level, but it's a
Yeah.
burn and turn
Yeah.
industry. Like you gotta have a special like something to want to do facility management because it's a very thankless job. You got pissed off, customers, and then you're trying to
Yes.
deal with the technicians who they're mad because the customer doesn't understand why it costs so much, and the customer's mad because it costs so much, and you're in the middle trying to like navigate this, and
Figure it
no
out.
one's at the end of it. No one's like, "Hey, thank you." They're just like, on to the next shitty job that
Let's
someone's
get it
yelling
done.
at you. Yeah, right.
Right.
So what I really was passionate about was being better to my employees, because in a 50% plus, over 50% turnover rate, you got employees that are coming and going, and then your client never gets to know the employee, but also your subcontractor never gets to know the employee, and
Yeah.
no relationships can ever be built. And I made my career on building relationships, and I have clients that have been with me since my first year at my first company, and they followed me all the way here to my 11th year at Branded Group. And there's something to be said about that, right? Like, I'm sure there's been jobs along the way that they could have said, you know what, forget Mike Kurland, I'm done with him. And there's been people that have done that, but there's people, for the most part, they've stuck with me because I built that relationship. So I wanted those employees to be able to build a relationship with the client specifically, because you want
Yes.
to know who you're sending work to, and you want to trust who you're sending work to. And if that person changes every 2 weeks, how can you build a relationship with them, right? Like, if I'm sending work to
Yes.
David and me and David are getting real close, and I trust David, who am I going to call when that emergency happens at 2 in the morning? I'm going to call David, right? I don't want to call like whoever the new flavor of the month is over at company B. So yeah, I think it was something that I really wanted to invest in, and in my personal life as well. Like I said earlier, I feel like I wear my heart on my sleeve. Sometimes I'm told I'm too emotional, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And I tell
Yeah.
people how I feel. I really try to connect with them and get to know them, and I invest in the people, and I invest in my employees. So.
Yeah. I think it's a leadership quality that, for years it was like, all right, you got to puff your chest up, sit in front of the room, be the leader and yell and bark out the orders. Where I really think more today, the leadership quality of navigating through tough business decisions really is one word, and I believe it's empathy, understanding both sides. I really think empathy is one of the things that um, is important these days to a certain point. Okay, not where you're getting taken advantage of, but you talk about this, navigating business leadership, and you obviously are a great leader yourself. What are some of the core traits that need to be really present to be a strong leader in today's world, I believe?
Well, I think you hit a big one right there with empathy. I think
Yeah.
you have to have some emotional intelligence. I think the days of what you just said earlier about profit, 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 and driving, like, slave driving your people to like just get more out of them so that they can produce more numbers for you. Those days, I mean, they probably, the Amazons of the world still
You can
exist, right?
find, yeah,
But
right,
but
totally.
but we're not, most people aren't running multi-billion-dollar businesses. They're happy to have a couple $1 million worth of revenue every year, and that's a lifestyle business. And
It's good business.
you want people to want to be there, because anyway, I think I'm getting off track here. Emotional
No, you're fine.
intelligence and empathy are two of the big things that I think are important. I think listening too is a lost art. I think so
Yeah.
many people don't know how to listen anymore, because people will mostly tell you what they need if you just listen. But if you're too busy waiting for your turn to talk and telling them what you need, then you can miss the boat on that sometimes.
Yeah, man. It's one of the things I talk about, and I did it at a leadership talk just after the new year. And I use this thing, these acronyms of we always trying to locate leaders, right? We're always trying to locate them. And I would say use the word locate in leadership, and that's listen, observe, challenge, okay, act, trust, and evaluate. I mean, that's what a true leader can do, but you have to do it in the way that you're talking about, and that's with authenticity, empathy, and understanding as well, from both sides. So I think it's important to do that. But listening is a huge one. I think everybody wants to hear about what. That's why I love doing the show, because I really like to listen to what people are talking about. But more importantly, rather than thinking about what I want to say next or ask, I used to do that early in my podcast. That when I first started doing podcasts a little over a year ago, I'd have my canned questions out, right? Like I have them all set up, and I'd start the podcast and I felt so technical about it. And then I wouldn't even get to half of them anyway, because I'd start listening and then it would really drive me off to another road anyway, which I wanted. But now when I put the podcast together, I do a little research, but I really just listen to what you're saying to try to do that. And I think that's a big leadership trait for sure.
Yeah, it's funny, to go on the podcast. I did the same thing when I started my podcast. It was just like,
Yeah.
you'd have, okay, I got to hit all these 6 questions, and they were just conversation, to keep it going if you hit a dead spot. But like, I didn't recognize, I was so nervous, and I'm like, I finally had to realize, like, I don't know how many people are listening, and there's nothing I can really say that's going to mess me up. But you don't know that when you're first starting. You want to be perfect, right? I'm sure, as you probably do, and you
Yeah.
realize that there is no perfect. It's just free flowing conversation with cool people out
Just
there,
do
that
it.
their stories, right? So I
Yeah.
appreciate what you just said. Yeah, totally. And I
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that locate acronym. That I might steal that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, please do take it away, man. Take it away. It's a little longer than I wanted, but it really does cover everything that it takes to be a strong leader, and
Yeah.
so it's a lot of fun to break those down. All right, let's talk about resilience and pivoting, which you obviously did in your career, but more importantly, I think being an entrepreneur really requires you to be resilient. Um, when you started your company, or even in the recent past, uh, what are some of the things that the situations of resilience that you had to put forth that have shaped really the company and the future of what you've got going on here?
Oh, I mean, so many things, right?
Yeah,
We lost our number one client like year 2, and had to pivot and backfill all that revenue, and it was scary, right? Because
yeah,
I've got my whole life savings tied up in this company, and like our number one client contributed to probably like 66% of our revenue year 1, right? And we were
yeah,
barely profitable year 1, but thankfully the tail of all the other work that I've been doing caught up, and we were able to, push through. But at the time that they told me, hey, we're not going to give you work anymore, I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do?
what are you
Right.
gonna do, right?
So, I've had numerous people quit where I thought they were, going to be difficult to replace at certain times.
Yeah,
And we've lost big clients, for various reasons. We've had a lot of bankruptcies. Retail is very volatile like that. Like
yeah,
we dodged a big bullet with Rite Aid, and they were one of our clients, and we fired them, which doesn't happen very often in our industry. We fired them
yeah.
3 months before they went bankrupt, and thank God we did.
Wow, you saw. Were there any signs? What were the signs? I'd love. I'd obviously. Was it the pay? Was just
No,
low
they
pay,
actually
or what?
no,
Yeah, what was going on?
they paid so fast. That was why, like, I'm sure a lot of people got into trouble with them, but they owed us $3 million.
Okay,
They were doing $1 million a month with us, sometimes more in revenue, which is, you're looking at that and you're like, holy shit, like this is great.
right.
But we just kept looking at their stock, and we're like, they're worth 50 cents right now. Their stock was worth 50. It kept going down. It was like
Yeah,
$3, 2.50, $2, $1.50. And we had just hired a CFO, and he's like, hey guys, I am telling you right now, there is every sign pointing to them going bankrupt. And I've learned over time, you can call them and have that conversation with the people in the department we deal with, and they're like, we have
right.
no indication that we're going bankrupt. And what I've learned is, like, they know probably 30 seconds before we know, right?
Right. They don't even have
So,
a clue.
so yeah, I mean, they see everything we see, and they can only make an educated decision. And like, it was tough, man, because we were going to do $12 million in revenue
Oh man.
in 2023, and we pulled the plug in June, and they owed us $3 million, and they kept paying us. It was really tough because we had a contract with them. They kept
Right.
paying us, and they went bankrupt in like the end of August. And when they went bankrupt, they owed us 300,000, which still sucked. But
Right. Still.
3 mil,
Right.
3 million to
Was
300,000.
3 million?
Yeah, yeah. So,
Oh.
so that was definitely a challenge we had to pivot from, and then we had to figure out what are we going to do? You know, we had to make tough decisions. We had to lay off an entire team, right? Because that was
Yeah.
$12 million worth of revenue coming in. We couldn't support keeping those people around. So yeah, we've had to make some tough decisions and pivot, but you know, we're still here and still plugging away. You know, 2 years
That's why
later.
you're here, man, because you made the
Yeah.
tough decision. And here's another thing I want to, from an outside in perspective, you hire a CFO. The CFO responsibly sees that and gives you advice to say, hey, listen, we got to pull the plug on this. I mean, think about that, everybody. You got a customer that's blowing out $1 million a month with you. Okay. All the signs on the outside. And then you surround yourself with a great CFO. Okay. We want to talk about surrounding yourselves with great people. I want to come back to that question here in a second here. But comes to you and says, dude, all the signs are pointing towards this company going belly up. And you guys make the call to yank it. I mean, how many business owners out there would have done that? Like they would have rode that thing in the ground and they would have been, and that 300,000 could have been 3 million or 1.5 million or 2 million at that point. But wow, what a not a great story to end, but what a great call from a business standpoint, because it is a jungle out there, I promise you. And to surround yourself with someone like that and the CFO is fantastic. So I want to ask you a question. How important is it really to surround yourself, not only professionally, but personally with great people? I know it's kind of a
Yeah.
loaded question, but I want
No,
to ask it anyway.
it's a good segue, but you know, it brings me to the first book I read when I was going to start this company, and you know, the subsequent company that I've started since is um The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And that's
Yeah,
literally like, for
great
all, if
book.
you guys are listening to this and you guys are, you know, thinking about starting your own thing, or you're in the infantile stages and you're in some growth, like, what I love about that book is it'll meet any entrepreneur where they're at in their journey, right? Even if you're blowing it
Yeah,
up, and like, I could still reread that book and find something that I probably missed 11 years
nugget.
ago
Yeah.
when I read it, you know? And so it's high, it says hire experts, right? And I don't, you know, you get lost because you want to have control over everything when you're starting something up and you don't want to spend money, but you save yourself so many mistakes when you hire experts, right? And it's better, I've found it's better to pay the premium in the beginning than for the mistake on the back end, right? Because we didn't
Yes.
hire an expert in the beginning. We had an accounting firm that wasn't very sophisticated. They made a bunch of mistakes on our taxes and on our, you know, how we were billing and paying our state income tax and our sales tax, and we got audited and we ended up paying a shit ton more money than it would have been to just hire the
Yes.
proper firm, right? So I can't stress enough, like, I've just started, so I'm a serial entrepreneur, which I never thought I would be. I've just started like 2 more businesses since Branded Group, and one of them is a black, you know, it's like a limo service, like a
Yeah.
company where a black car company. And so, you know what I did to start this company? And I know this isn't like something that everyone can do, but I still, thinking as an entrepreneur, I hired a consultant that already has a successful black car service in another part of the country, and I paid
Right.
him so that I could just flatten the learning curve. And it's not that expensive, you know. It was a couple $1,000s, and I'm investing that time, and I'm like giving myself a crash course because I don't know shit about black car services other than I don't like the ones that are out here in Orange County, and I think I can do it better. Back to be better, right? So so I
Right.
so I paid this guy to flatten the curve, and you know, we haven't really it's only been open for about a month. We haven't gotten crazy. I can't tell you I've had like exponential growth, but
Right.
you know,
Right.
I'll report back in 2 years, and I guarantee you, like, I'll be a lot farther along than I should be because I'm, you know, hiring an expert and surrounding myself with people that know what they're doing to not make the same mistakes they did.
That's fantastic. That's a great clip for us here. Listen back to that. Pay the extra money. I was taught this years ago, and it was said to me more in a smart ass way. But the guy who was mentoring me years ago looked at me because I was going to chintz on something, and was hiring, an accounting person. It was like my first accounting person I was going to hire, and this one was wanted the job that I really liked, but needed a little bit more of a salary. And my mentor at the time looks at me and goes, David, first class just costs a little bit more. And that always stuck with me. First class just costs a little bit more.
Yep.
And just through the years, already stuck with me, which is what you're talking about. Just pay the extra money, do it the right way, because it'll save you a lot of money in the long run anyway.
We,
Yeah,
to just reiterate with back to the CFO, I mean, we
yeah,
had this third party CFO company and they did, we were just a number to them. We didn't have the dedication. We didn't have the oversight on a regular basis. And so
yeah,
we got what we paid for and it wasn't good. And they actually caught, and the funny thing was they cost more than a CFO would have cost. So we finally hired the CFO and that, thankfully we did that. He saved Branded Group single-handedly from, possible extinction through that one
yeah,
call. And thankfully we listened, like you said.
yeah.
Anyway.
That's fantastic. I mean, the way to be ahead of it like that. So, listen, you talk about starting this new business. You obviously you turn into a serial entrepreneur. What's your experience, and maybe what's your advice more that I'd like to hear on scaling businesses? Okay, what's the key to you? Obviously, outside of bringing in a consultant in the beginning and speeding up that learning curve, are there any other things that you'd like to add about scaling up a business or getting it to grow a little bit faster or the right way as well?
Yeah, I think uh, so. I'm a salesman by trade. I
Mhm.
think if you're not a salesman person, you you need to invest in someone that can sell your product, that needs to learn it, know it, buy into it. And you gotta spend money to make money. You gotta put them in the places. You gotta send them to the trade shows. You gotta send them, on the road to press the palms and kiss the babies, get in front of
Yeah,
people, right? You can't, if you think you're gonna grow everything from them sitting behind a computer screen, you get in line because there's about 1,000 other people sending, sales emails and cold calling every day. You got to stand out from the crowd. People want to buy something from a person who they like. Again, back to relationships.
yeah,
And I really think, like, back to the e-myth is you have to work on your business, not in your business. So
yes,
you gotta, make a plan, do what you're good at, and then once you are running out of bandwidth, you got to get someone to do that other job. Like if you're a salesperson, you need an ops person. If you're an HR person, you need a sales and an ops person. If you're an ops person, you need a sales and an HR person. Like whatever it is, hire those people, preferably experts, because you get what you pay for. First class just costs a little bit more, but that money like that you invest in the company is going to come back to you. To what you said earlier, right? Like when you invest in the employees, the company grows through osmosis, right? Because the employees are happy.
yeah,
When you invest in these people that are a little bit more, and you're not spending time trying to like fix their mistakes or train them to do what you need them to do, and you're actually hiring people that already know what to do from day one, then you can focus on what you're good at and what you really like to do. I really like to do sales, so
yeah,
I had an ops person. When the
great,
time was right, I had an HR person. When the time was right, I had uh, an insurance guy, a compliance guy. I've had and everything in between. So don't be scared to spend that money. Yeah, it might take you a little longer to make a million, but it's okay.
you'll get there.
You'll
Yeah,
get
you'll
there.
get there.
You'll get there. Just be
Yeah,
patient. And the last thing I'll say is like I'm really good at growth, but explosive growth costs a lot of money too. And
yeah,
if you want to, you got to figure out what your sweet spot is. Because my old boss, who's also a mentor of mine, it was funny. Like when we were working back in New York, he hit, I think he hit 50 million one year, like towards the end of our time together. And I was like, that's awesome, dude. We hit 50 million. So excited for you. And he looked at me and he was like, you know, 50, there's not much difference between 25 and 50 million except more work and more headaches. The money's about the same. And I didn't learn that until now. We blew past 50. We hit 68. Our best year was 69 2 years ago.
wow.
And we made the same amount of money at 69 that we made at 30.
Isn't it
So it's just,
amazing?
more money, more problems, right? I think the notorious.
Yeah, I know, Taurus BIG, right? The two things I want to take away from that is one, I bring up the E-Myth at least, I'd probably say at least 2 or 3 times a year to entrepreneurs or business owners, whoever. I mean, I read the E-Myth, the original one, and then there was the E-Myth Revisited, which came out. Like I was
Yep.
lucky enough early in my career to have a recommendation to read that book, and it really did change my perspective on the way that I grew my first business. It's so eye-opening, just working, like you said, working on the business, working versus working in the business because you're so bogged down. But if you haven't read that book, go out and get it. It is timeless. I mean, it's a timeless book. So go out and get it. And my other thought was, just in growing and scaling businesses, it's a lot of work. And I remember the last company that I had built, I mean, we were on a major growth path. Like every day things were changing, and it can get chaotic. And listen, I always say that businesses are a dragon. Like they are heartless. They will breathe fire. They will not sleep. They will fly. They will sit. I mean, it's just, and if they're on the whole thing was just like I just remember those days of growing because I felt like I was on the dragon tail and just like being whipped around. And, eventually we got more control over it. But yeah, when you're growing fast, it can be quite challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I am like a diamond, double platinum, like Marriott and American Airlines person, and people think that that's cool, and I'm like, I earned every one of those fucking miles. I've slept in so many hotel rooms and been on so many planes. So to your point, like that was my version of the growth, right? It was just getting in
Yeah.
front of people all over the country, and I look back at it, I'm like, damn, thank God I was in my 30s and single. Like it was not a way to, do that with a family. And, it hurts now. It
Yeah.
hurts a little bit more as you get in your 40s. So
Totally. It's funny because right now, same thing with Delta, because I've been traveling more the last couple of years, obviously doing consulting work, and I'm not like trying to be a snob or anything when I'm traveling, but when I get to have the upgrade and do that stuff, I'm like, no, I've earned that stripe. Like,
yeah, 100%.
it's not easy. It's not easy,
No,
but
no, definitely not. And you go to some god awful places and plane. I mean, I can't. The last 2 times I've tried to fly to Columbus, Ohio, some hotbed of hotbed of retail, home corporate offices.
oh
And the last,
yeah,
last two
yeah,
times I've flown to Columbus, my flight's been delayed. I've been on the tarmac for at least 2 hours. Like these, you miss my connection. Like people don't think about that. Didn't get to tuck my
yeah,
kid in, kiss her goodnight. Like,
yeah.
so there's sacrifice,
12-hour days, man. During the 12, 15-hour days.
Mhm.
All right, listen, before we go here, a few more questions.
Sure.
But this has been fantastic. Thank you, Michael. I've really enjoyed this conversation. But advice for, an aspiring entrepreneur, what piece of advice could you give somebody listening? Because I've talked to a lot of professionals in the world and people who want to take that leap of faith, or maybe they just feel a little bit stuck and they know there's something more out there for them. What kind of advice could you give them?
Do it. Like,
Yeah.
not to be like Nike, just do it. Like, go. Just your mom is going to tell you don't do it because what are you going to do? You need a safety net. Your dad's going to be scared. Your wife is going to have fear. Everyone
Yeah.
is going to have fear for you because they're not an entrepreneur and they've never thought of themselves that way and they've never wanted to do it. They've always wanted the comfort of safety. You can't listen to that. If you've got an idea and you've got a burning desire and you don't want to work for someone else and make money for someone else, then just do it. Get out there and do it.
Yeah. And the advice I'll add to that too is just it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that's out of whack. Like it's never going to align 100% where you're going to be like, yeah, this is like the stars are going to align, the seas are going to part and everything's going to fall into your lap. It's just not going to happen that way. You're going to have things that are totally out of whack. And I couldn't agree with you more. You just got to take that leap because as you condition yourself, it's funny. We have this conditioning, you'll push yourself to a level that's going to be uncomfortable. And then that uncomfortable level is going to get more comfortable. And then you're going to push yourself to another uncomfortable level, and that level is going to be comfortable. And you're going to look back and be like, wow, 2 years ago, what was uncomfortable to me is like an everyday thing now. So you can condition yourself to handle it. You've got to be mentally tough, and you've got to know that it's never going to be perfect. You've got to make the leap.
Yep.
Yeah,
Love it.
You got to make the leap. Yep. All right. What's next for you? Obviously you've got some businesses. You've accomplished, a great book. You've got great companies. What's on the horizon for you next?
Yeah, so I've started my own consulting company. It is Be Better Consulting, and we love working with small businesses, startups. That's my sweet spot. I can flatten the curve for you as well. So that's what I've been really focusing my energy on these days. And now I got this black car thing that I just think I can do better. So we'll see. I'll report back in 6 months and see if
We'll
I
check in.
ran into a bunch of headaches on that. So that's kind of it. I want to spend some time with my kid, and she's 2, and like you said,
that's great.
yeah, like you said, there's never a good time to start a business, and there's never a good time to have a kid. So we're thinking about a second one and waiting for the perfect time to do that. So hopefully that happens soon too. Yeah.
That's great.
So,
That's great.
Yep.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for being on this show. Pick up this guy's book, Broken to Better. It's a great story. And Michael, where can people find you? Where can they reach out, connect with you if they have some questions or just want to get some feedback?
You can go to my website. It's michaelkurland.co. My full name. So just head over there if you're interested and you want to talk. There's a contact button. You can put all your information in, and it'll get to me, and I'll reach out. It's me who responds. So looking forward to any conversations that come from this.
Excellent, man. Listen, great having you on the show, and really appreciate all your support out there. Wealth, health, success to all of you. We really appreciate support because we're really getting a lot of traction on this show, a lot of great feedback. And it's because of guests, I always say this, guests like you, Michael, who make this show as successful as it is. And listen, everybody, go out there today and go get yourself a win. I don't care how little or how big it is. Go get a win for yourself. And again, Michael, thanks for being here. See y'all next time.
Unfinished Business Podcast Show with your host, David Sliman.